Welcome back. We're going to discuss the Green Party now. It's just announced that it has got a record membership levels, 80,000 people. That is, of course, dwarfed somewhat by the 800,000 people who've signed up to your party. Although we just discussed this, probably a few of them have now signed up to the Green Party, considering the state of your party. Anyway, it's a 20% increase in membership in a few weeks, and that's certainly down to Zach Polanski. He certainly talks a good radical talk, and he's been keen to attend, for example, events organized by the Socialist Workers' Party, aka We Demand Change. But does this new leader make the Green Party a radical alternative, capable of providing real answers that can actually tackle the destructive capitalist system? So we've got two different views here today. We've got with us Damian Willey, who's I think you recognize him. He's also a Green Party Councillor, as it happened in Cornwall, as well as a host. And we've got Jack Conrad, who's a member of the Communist Party, and he's written the Little Red Climate book. I'm going to start with Damian first. Zara Sultana, who many lefties like you probably also quite like, she said recently the Greens are not a socialist party, they're not a working class party, and they, for example, they support NATO. Why do you still think do you disagree with her, and what do you think makes the Green Party a radical alternative?
I think it's rather a disappointing assessment, actually. The NATO thing I get, but like all policy in the Green Party, it's all member-led, and everybody has a conference, and they decide if they want to change the manifesto, if you like, or what the party actually stands for. It's all available online all the time, which is unusual as far as political parties go. So at least you can't say the colours aren't nailed to the mast, so to speak. But to say it's not a socialist party is say, well, you know, it could be. It depends how many people join it and then choose to shape it, because that's simply how the party works, really. I mean, she might want to consider trying it herself, frankly, with the state that your party has got into and opened it. And I think that's where I want to pick up on in the title of this segment, radical, and maybe turn that on its head a little bit and say necessary, because you've got Labour. Well, we've got a Labour conference, haven't we? We've got Keir Starmer doing a pale, male and stale speech at the minute. He is authoritarian. He is cracking down on any manner of dissent, especially when it comes to the matter of Palestine. He is imposing things that the Tories brought in, like the two-child benefit cap, for example, and discrimination against disabled people. And then you've got the Tories who brought that in before them, and Kemi Badenoch is kind of, well, what is she anymore? Frankly, what are the Tories anymore? You've got Reform surging because Starmer is basically copying them. And your party can't seem to decide who wants to be in charge, and that seems to be splitting it down the middle. And as much as you've had 800,000 sign-ups, which is fantastic. I mean, that is the makings of an epic party in no time at all. They've screwed it, haven't they?
Well, for the time being, that's certainly true. But it does show there is a thirst for big answers. And the question, of course, I put to you now as a Green Party councillor, can you solve the climate crisis within capitalism? Because the Green Party does not have a program that goes beyond much of the status quo.
But again, this is where the work has to begin with changing, or shaping, I say changing the party, shaping the party in a way that's going to travel in that direction. You've got Polanski, who is a working class guy from Salford, despite Zara Sultana's assertion. And you know, the policy is shaped by the members. It's what they want. He is going around with his eco-populism. That's the campaign that he got elected on, with 85% of the vote in that. It was a thumping mandate that he got. It doesn't sound very capitalist to me. And in fact, he's gone on to challenge the media as well, which are basically the mouthpieces of capitalism in this country, the mainstream media. He has started his own podcast, and he's had brilliant alternative voices to the way things could be done. For example, Gary Stevenson, Gary's Economics, just this week, who is, you know, a very, very wealthy guy, former city trader, but recognises the problems with the economy in this country today. That's not the sign of somebody who is planning on taking capitalism forward within the Green Party. That's someone who's marking his ground as shifting. Now, obviously, it's early days with the guy. He's caused a lot of excitement. A lot of people have joined. But he very much still has to prove himself. I'm not going to deny that at all.
I'm going to bring Jack in now. Jack, Zach Polanski has said in a recent interview, do we shout we're a socialist party? That's sort of along the lines of what Damon just said. No, we don't shout that we're a socialist party because most people don't know what that means. We're talking about lowering bills, having a tax on millionaires, etc., etc. These are all socialist policies. So socialism through the back door. Are you convinced that's clever politics?
Well, in a word, I'm afraid no. I mean, the fact of the matter is that every state on the planet taxes the rich. Some tax more, some tax less, but they all tax the rich. The real question is, from our point of view, is the fact that we live in a class society, and that is what we need to end. So yeah, taxing the rich, promoting, I don't know, effectively the interests of the petty bourgeoisie, that isn't socialism. So yeah, the answer is no, I don't recognize that. As to the membership shaping it, of course, that's true. But if you go in with Damian's view of what socialism is, it's not recognizably socialist, at least as far as I'm concerned. So to me, socialism is the rule of the working class, the abolition of wage labor, and a transition to a communist society based on production for need, not production for the sake of profit. And whether that's the profit of a small shopkeeper, a small brewer, self-employed builder. No, we want to get rid of capitalism, lock, stock, and barrel.
Damon, I mean, what does your vision of socialism is it different? And if it's not actually different, why not fight openly for what you think is needed? If we need to get rid of capitalism, shouldn't we actually say so?
I mean, I think probably yes, we should say we need to get rid of capitalism. Would I go to the extent that Jack has stated how he views socialism? Possibly not. I think personally socialism is all about making sure the needs of the many are met, and the needs it should be about the many and not the few, frankly, as Corbyn used to say. It's fundamentally making sure that society is run in the interest of society as a whole, not as a vehicle for enriching certain individuals. And I think there is still far too, although I take the point perfectly well that they are taxed a bit, they're not taxed proportionally. The work is taxed far greater than wealth is. And the issue that Polanski regularly talks about is about taxing wealth, not earnings and earned wages. And when he talks about eco-populism, it's you're talking about the climate crisis. You asked me about the climate crisis a minute ago. I didn't really answer it, did I? But the climate crisis goes hand in hand with the issues of society, because if you get people that cannot afford to pay their rent, are not getting paid enough, they cannot afford to pay their bills, cannot heat their homes, they cannot afford to embrace green change and green policies, they don't want to hear about that. So the trick is to demonstrate and show it's not a trick. A trick is a horrible word to actually use, actually. Shame on you, Damo. But it's telling promoting a narrative whereby we can get to the climate justice bit if we sort out the social justice side of it first. The two need to come hand in hand. It shouldn't be one or the other. And there's no way realistically you can deal with the climate crisis without dealing with social justice first. So I think inherently my view of socialism is about fairness, first and foremost.
You sound like Jeremy Corbyn.
Socialism is about fairness. It's just not the right colour yet.
Jack, is socialism about fairness?
Well, no. I don't think it is about fairness, actually. I actually think it's about need. And I think that's a different concept, Damian. To me, people are unequal. They have different needs. And so therefore, yeah, people who've got greater needs need either more staff or more help. My principle isn't fairness, it's need. And, just to backtrack a little, if I can, I recognize Polanski's fantastic, what a victory. 85%, didn't you say, voting for him? But my take on this is, to hell with leaders. Do we need a Bonapartist figure in the Green Party? Well, that's up to the Green Party. But the last thing we actually need in your party is to reproduce those sort of politics of the leader. Now, whether the leader's the king or whether the leader is the empress, it's the monarchical system, it's the Bonapartist system of leaders that we need to get rid of. So I readily appreciate that the Green Party, compared, for example, with the Labour Party, and who knows about your party, is a model of democracy. But it's still not my model of democracy. I just don't like this stuff of, Zach says this, Zach says that. It should be the membership, that aren't following some sort of acclaimed leader. So, I think we've got a different approach to politics.
Can I just come back on that? I think it's I love the way actually you brought up the word need, actually, necessity. I think it's a perfect way of replacing that word radical in the title is need. And I come from a background where I'm an unpaid carer. My wife is disabled, my daughter is disabled. Cost of living is higher, need is greater. So that should be recognised. That shouldn't be a question. Instead, what we get in society currently is these people get demonised as scroungers or shirkers or getting something for nothing. And they get demonised like that because it's divide and rule. And we need unity, certainly. And I think you and I, Jack, would agree very much with that need for unity. You want a members-led society, so to speak, without a leader. I still think you need direction. It's not so much what Zach says this and Zach says that. Zach's been here busy leader for 5 minutes at the end of the day. It is member-led, and we have that conference, the motions and resolutions as political parties tend to have of all shapes and sizes. These things get decided there, and it becomes policy. And it's not a matter of debate. It's not a case of being, I don't know, like we saw at Labour conference. We've seen the grand consensus being to recognise that Israel is committing genocide in Gaza. And I think everybody here, certainly, and I think a great deal of people at home will have been thinking about that and looking at that and thinking, well, Labour's going to ignore that one, aren't they? That's not democracy. That's not a democratic process. We've seen Labour do that with other things in the past before, of course.
Just on that, I mean, the membership of the Green Party recently recommitted the party to be pro-NATO. That's a sort of recent decision. I know Polanski is against that, but it's also there's clearly a pro-Ukraine stand of the Labour Party, of the Green Party. Can you see why some people, like, I'm, for example, from the Green, I'm German, and the Green Party in Germany is fully pro-imperialist, it's fully pro-war, and that's in the name of the ecology. We have to, basically fight against Russia, etc. So they're fully on board of imperialism. That's the kind of logic of the Green Party program, becoming a militaristic force when you're trying to support Ukraine, plucky Ukraine against Russia, etc. There's a danger there, isn't there?
Yeah, I think it's not helpful often that you have so many of these green parties in other nations that are distinctly different, shall we say, to the one that we've got now currently in the UK. Yes, the recommitment to NATO is there. Yeah, am I disappointed in that? Yes, I am. It's not something I personally would back at all. I think it is US-driven Western imperialism committing us to defence budgets that are ridiculous, and if we stopped making so much war, we wouldn't need to commit so much to begin with. That's happened is disappointing, and I can understand when people say, right, that's it, no, we can't join the Green Party, they support NATO, end of. We see this a lot on social media, actually. But if that's your attitude, you're seeking perfection. And there's no such thing as a perfect political party. They don't exist. There's always going to be. When I was a member of Corbyn's Labour Party, because I came to the Greens from that, You know, broadly speaking, policy-wise, I didn't disagree with Jeremy on a heck of a lot. But of course, you had people in the same party who you could not stand, that you revolted you. But we stayed in the party because of the direction it was going under his leadership. And then, of course, everything fell apart, and a lot of us either left or were convinced to very strongly in various shapes or forms.
Indeed.
So it's finding another home, another place where you feel like you can do something constructive, where you can take your political views forward. At that point in time, is Jeremy going to start a party? When's it coming? He's going to start a party, isn't he? No, he still hasn't started the party. 2 years, 3 years, 4 years later, still no party. Well,
yeah,
people don't want to wait forever.
But talking about the anti-Semitism smear campaign, I mean, your Zach, our Zach, he was in on that as well, wasn't he? He has apologised for it, which is fair enough. But the Green Party still, like the Labour Party did, in fact, is committed to the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance's definition of anti-Semitism, which is not a definition of anti-Semitism, it's a misdefinition, you know. Is there a campaign to get rid of that? Because that is clearly being used to redefine what anti-Semitism is.
I've certainly seen conversations in that respect. I don't know about any a full-on campaign necessarily.
Why don't you launch one?
I would, well, maybe I should. No,
Yes,
what am I doing here? I've got to go. But, you know, it's, yeah, you're right. And that is deeply concerning that is still on the table, and that needs to be shifted. And yes, Zach did apologise for that. Zach is, of course, Jewish himself, though. He is anti-Zionist, despite having been raised in a Zionist household. He really knows his stuff on this sort of thing. I think he's in a perfect position to refute an awful lot of the accusations that could be aimed at him for perhaps promoting a lot of policies that might be broadly in line with the sort of thing that Jeremy used to promote and stood for, the stuff that was in the 2017 manifesto. I would love to see the 2017 manifesto transplanted broadly into the Green Party. I dare say you would like to see that transplanted into your party.
Me? No. I think it's a rubbish programme, personally. It's a social democratic programme. But I mean, talking about that, I mean, are you in favour, for example, and Polanski has sort of pushed that away, of an alliance, electoral alliance, or, you know,
do you know what?
Between
this split in the Your Party, I spoke about this on one of my videos on my YouTube channel, and it has actually made me really angry. Because you've got places in society where Jeremy will reach out. It's only 800,000 people. He can reach out a lot. He's got a long reach. And the Greens don't have that. What the Greens do have is party machinery, national infrastructure. So there's ample reason to overlap and form alliances in certain areas. For example, I don't know, West Streeting, for example, Ilford North. He nearly lost his seat to Leanne Mohammed. If Leanne was best placed to win that seat, as I believe she still is, she was your party, which I think she was, if I'm right in saying she's leaning towards, or maybe already there. Why would the Greens stand against her? It would be stupid. The same could be said in Keir Starmer's own seat, Andrew Feinstein, for example. Without the Green vote last time, he might almost have taken Starmer down. Going forwards, the way polling is there now, he could quite easily do that. It would be folly for the Greens to stand there. So why can't they have that conversation? It doesn't have to be formal. It just has to be common sense that the left actually unites. Because you have this left-leaning Green Party infrastructure or leadership now. An incredibly diverse one, I might say as well. Jewish, anti-Zionist Zach Polanski, Muslim, working-class Yorkshireman in Motinali.
Jack, what do you think? I mean, Trotsky said you can have alliances with the devil as long as you don't call him an angel. Greens and your party, should they get it together?
Well, I think it would be perfectly sensible, perfectly principled. I mean, we obviously don't know what your party is yet, whether it will happen, what its programme is. But yeah, in principle, we shouldn't rule out alliances, either of a formal sort, i.e., you know, this constituency, you stand, that constituency, someone else stands. But also, I would say that in all of this talk, we shouldn't forget the Labour left. I have no illusions in the parliamentary Labour left. But as things stand, for example, at the moment, I think it would be perfectly reasonable, for example, for your party, I'm sure they would agree, not to stand against John McDonnell or Diane Abbott, for example. So yes, of course, you can have alliances, you can have arrangements with all manner of different parties. All I would say from my angle is I won't prettify such an arrangement. I won't prettify the Green Party, but nor would I prettify your party. The chances of your party adopting the sort of program I would advocate, at least at the moment, is very slim. Nonetheless, of course, it ought to adopt tactics. It ought to have flexibility. And I'm sure, actually, that will be the case.
Jack, can we talk now a bit wider, and also then with Damian, and sort of our vision of the future, and how can we actually, as communists, as socialists, avoid the climate catastrophe making the planet uninhabitable? Can we avoid it? And what have we learned from the example of real existing socialism? What went wrong there? Produced the shit out of everything, no matter what's happening to the planet. What's your view on that?
Well, I think that the experience of the Soviet Union, certainly with the first 5-year plan we could talk about before that, wasn't socialism. I mean, for want of a better word, I call it bureaucratic socialism, but it was an anti-socialism. It wasn't the rule of the working class. The working class was exploited, and so is nature exploited. That if we look at the ecological record of the Soviet 5-year plans, they were disastrous. I mean, polluted lakes, belching smoke, diseases, all manner of different horrors. Whether we can, rescue things, I think is an open question. And I don't know what you think, Damian, but I mean, if you look at where things are going at the moment, even if we stopped, unnecessary production today, we would still be living with, the oil tanker, i.e. the momentum in terms of global warming will continue. I don't know, is it 100 years or whatever? Either way, I do think myself that it is either socialism, i.e. the control of production by those who produce, and I'm glad that, Damian and myself are in agreement of why we produce on the basis of need. But yes, until we get that, I don't think there's any hope. Whether we achieve socialism, humanity still faces, massive challenges to survive on this planet. The planet will survive, nature will survive. Whether human civilization can survive, I think is an open question. It's a terrible prognosis. I think the idea that socialism, is a magic wand and solves the issue on day one is delusional. It might take us, 100 years, 150 years. It will certainly be a different generation to mine and Damian's and even you, Tina.
Well, even me. Oh, no way. Jack, what do you think about those on the Green? Probably not Damian, but there are on the Greens. It's been a huge trend to say that it's people, population. There's too many people on the planet. That is the problem with the planet going down, and we need depopulizing. And the Green Party had it in its program until a few years ago that there's too many people in Britain, basically, and you need to depopulate. But where do you see that issue?
Well, it's a funny one nowadays, isn't it? Because in my little book, my little red climate book, yes, I dealt with neo-Malthusianism and population matters. And the Green Party, which was proposing, I think, Damian, to reduce Britain's population to 30 million. All of these concerns, well, they're sort of still there. But what's amazing over the last few years is that has been replaced with some sort of natalism, i.e. Elon Musk and the right wing of the Tory party But of course, what they're talking about is there's not enough of the right sort of people, which means white, British or American people. So, yeah, the Green Party does have a strand of Malthusianism going right back in terms of its prehistory to the Ecology Party, and before that, the People Party. So I don't know what their position is at the moment. Last time I read the programme, Damian, I think was, 2, 3, 4 years ago. And I think that was there, but it's been toned down. Either way, it is interesting how these things tend to go in swings and roundabouts. I mean, the general discourse at the moment, if you look at Spain, Italy, Japan, South Korea, Britain, is there isn't enough of the native population reproducing itself, i.e. The average woman in Britain now, I think, has something like, if you can have 1.5 children, but you know what I mean. But it's below the replacement level. In terms of replacing labour, it comes from outside, from migration.
Yeah, what's your view on that question, on the population time bomb?
The social justice side of what is being spoken about in the Greens these days, very much the reason I joined the Greens as it happens, is I think relevant here in that cutting the population to 30 million, that wouldn't have been a Green Party I'd have opted to join. I think that was a little before my time. However, it's a fact that the population of this country is now declining because people simply cannot afford to have children. You've got this next generation, my own children's generation, basically, and they can't afford to rent on their own. They can't afford to leave home, some of them. Those that aren't at university and are out of my way at the moment anyway. But they can't, I've got one son who's a head chef. I've got another one who runs his own security business now. They're both still at home. They can't afford to move out. They can't afford to start a family if they can't afford to move out, can they? So we've got this problem in society where everything is just, the wages are repressed, support isn't there, and the society is not being run for the benefit of the many because it's all going up to those at the top. So I think the conversation has kind of come full circle here, actually. I think, I'd like to think Jack would agree with that assertion.
Yeah. People are the solution, not the problem, right?
Absolutely.
So, and just summing up in your terms, how can we turn the climate catastrophe around? What's the Green Party's vision in your view? Again,
it comes back to that social justice rather than that climate question. It can't just be that climate question. As Jack did rightfully say, this is not going to be fixed overnight. No system can fix this overnight because it's a global problem and it needs global conversations and coordination. And you need the right kind of leaders saying the right things to the right people instead of kissing up to the orange oaf across the Atlantic. He needs to be held to account by them. We should be moving, arguably, I would suggest, closer to Europe at this point in time, perhaps even Asia, where things seem to be becoming a lot more progressive. I think global politics is skewed to the point that we simply cannot deal with it at this point in time. That might be a bit of a radical view, even within the Green Party, perhaps. But you need the right kind of leaders saying the right kind of things to whoever else is around them. You need the right kind of leaders who in this country are going to be pushing towards the right kind of policies that are going to change things so that people can get on board with a green agenda. Because at the minute, people simply can't afford to. So it's got to start with social justice. Everything comes back to social justice to begin with. Until we have that, till we start to see that delivered by a government, the climate crisis will never be dealt with. And as Jack quite rightly said, where will the human race be ultimately?
I'll bring in Jack last. Then you wouldn't agree with that it needs the right leaders. It actually needs the people taking charge.
I think Damien and myself would agree that in human society we do need leaders. You need a leader of an orchestra and top chef and all the rest of it. The real question I would just disagree with you, Damien. In terms of first we must have social justice and then we can tackle the climate crisis. To me, if the population, if the working class organizes into a strong party, if it can come to power, not just in little place called Great Britain, but across Europe, for example, then I think that we're talking about something, because you've got power. With power comes confidence that you can actually organize people to tackle, to fight under capitalism, even around issues around the climate. I'm not convinced by what I would call your stagism. First of all, social justice. I don't think that under capitalism we're ever going to get social justice. So this is really my point here, that if we can't get social justice under capitalism, and I don't think we can, what do we then do about the climate question? Say, wait? I think you and I would agree that we can't afford to wait. So to me, precisely, it's not social justice first, then the climate. We've got to have a program that links all these issues, and we fight simultaneously, not only in terms of living standards, but also democratic rights, also the climate, everything. We need to be coordinating everything in our struggle. I suspect you'd actually agree with that.
He probably does. We've run out of time now. Socialism or barbarism is certainly on the agenda, unfortunately, and we have to leave it at that. Let's go for the socialism one, shall we? Thank you, comrades.